Good morning, everybody. Can you all hear me?
Good morning, sir.
Yeah, good
Yes, we can.
morning.
Morning, sir. We can hear you.
Thank you very much. Welcome to week one of JIIPCC Mentorship and Internship program for the fourth quarter in the energy industry. My name is Hussein Mahadi, and I'm the moderator for today's session. Our topic for today, as we all know, the fossil fuel industry. Our mentees have made research and came up with PowerPoint presentation. Today we'll be hearing from our mentors, and our mentors will also comment after our mentees' PowerPoint presentation. We have four mentors with us today on the call, and we are expecting four mentors. We hope to have all of them on the call today. Mr. Okochukwu Kelly, Mr. Okiogene Ogbehe, Mr. Etula Adun, and finally, Mr. Ayobami Dafe. Welcome once again, everyone, and thank you to be here. We look forward to learning from our mentors and taking corrections on our research from our mentors today. Quickly, I'll be making a few announcements and also reading our mentors' profile before we jump into the topic for today. So about the program, JIIPCC Mentorship and Internship Program is a quarterly program for students and young professionals across Africa. Mentees are afforded the opportunity to access valuable advice, training, network, mentorship, internship, discussion forum, industry updates, and resource material from experienced mentors. The program seeks to encourage continuous training, development, and evolution in Nigeria, Africa, and around the world. You can watch some of our videos on YouTube by searching for JIIPCC. Some of the objectives of the program is also to provide easy access, guidance, training, and resource material for students and young professionals across Africa, to facilitate dialogue and network among experienced and less experienced practitioners and stakeholders, to transform mentees into mentors and leaders for the next generation, and to facilitate further mentorship, internship, scholarship, and job placements for our mentees. That's what the program is all about. JIIPCC Mentorship and Internship Program also have a 30-minute one-on-one session with your your favorite mentor. You can have a 30-minute session with your favorite mentor. You can get life hacks, secrets, lessons, and direction on your careers from your favorite mentor. So on the course of the program, you are going to meet a lot. Like today, we have 4 mentors. Week 2, we are going to be having more mentors till the end of the program. So you just, one of the mentors will be your favorite mentor, obviously. So if you want to have a 30-minute one-on-one session with them, you reach out to either of the JIIPCC team, myself, Dennis, or anyone on the team to help you, or you can just register through the link on your screen, bit.ly/JIIPCCPM. And lastly, my last announcement is that for this fourth quarter of the program, we are still taking mentees for the program. So we are taking until week 2. So the courses we offer are intellectual property, artificial intelligence and technology, the energy industry, fintech, health tech, and law. We are not taking patent drafting and blockchain, NFTs, and metaverse this quarter. So we are still taking data privacy and protection and entertainment, business, and law. So in case you have colleagues, you have friends that are interested in any of these areas, you can share the flyer with them. The registration link is on the flyer, and let them register and join this quarter. So I'll be taking our mentors profile. I'm starting with Mr. Okiogene Ogbehe. Okiogene is a top-tier oil, gas, and energy professional. Okay, whose experience span the upstream, midstream, and downstream sector. He is driven by academics, market research, and work training experience, which is reflective in this professional experience and education. He graduated from the University of Science and Technology, where he started his career in mechanical engineering. This followed with several master's degrees in project management, subsea engineering, and an MBA from schools in the United Kingdom and Rwanda. His oil and gas career took flight when he joined Tilon Subsea Limited as a subsea engineer and ROV pilot, working for upstream companies like Nigerian Petroleum Development Company and Total Energies. He then moved to a small oil and gas development company, startup called MG Gas Limited. That was then a major player in NAOC, AGIP, land and offshore pipeline, and crude storage infrastructure developments. Okay, and operations in Bayelsa State. During this role, he led infrastructure growth projects and was the mastermind of the conception and construction of the world-class Mount Zion fabrication yard, currently sited in Transwoji waterfront in Port Harcourt, Rivers State. He later joined the crude evacuation arms of Midwestern Oil and Gas, which was then the most successful marginal field operators. This company called Umugini Pipeline Infrastructure Limited was and is a well-structured crude transportation and terminal operation startup. He joined to head the field operations and maintenance team in Delta State to run the robust strategy put on ground by the promoters of the special purpose vehicle, which is still making waves today. He is currently the head technical of Energy Link Infrastructure Limited, another novel crude evacuation storage and sale terminal infrastructure startup headquartered in Lagos, but operating in Bonny. He is heavily involved in energy research, oil and gas, field operations, optimization, study, and is consulting for many organizations in the energy sector. He has, in the past 2 years, ventured into renewable energy and electric vehicles as part of his commitments to energy transition to greener, more sustainable energy, mining, and consumption. He has mentored several young engineers, energy enthusiasts, and lectured management and energy-related programs virtually and in person for institutions and conferences globally. He is a registered engineer in the engineer and entrepreneur, a fellow of several professional bodies and energy broker, engaged in project management, business optimization, and crude evacuation studies, especially from startups and growing companies. His email is okeogene.ugbehe@gmail.com. Thank you very much for joining us. Sorry, the profile is so lengthy. Thank you very much, Mr. Okeogene, for all that you do and also choosing to mentor us today on the energy industry. So our second mentor for today is Mr. Itula Adun, MSc, MNSC, Oil and Gas, industry expert, holds an executive MBA from the Quantic School of Business and Technology, Washington, D.C., USA, MSc in Petroleum Technology from Teesside University, UK, Bachelor of Engineering, Petroleum Engineering from Gobkin University, Russia. 10 years plus of experience in upstream oil and gas production operations, energy industry experts, and global voice on international energy geopolitics. Worked with major IOCs in Nigeria. Thank you very much for joining us today, Mr. Itula Adun. Let me see our welcome message on the chat box. Let me see us welcoming our mentor and saying how excited we are to have them here today. Mr. Ayobami Dafe Iyola is our third mentor for today. Ayobami Dafe Iyola is a barrister and solicitor, compliance specialist, PhD researcher, and law author. He has about 12 years experience working in law firms, oil and gas, power, and maritime companies in Nigeria and the United Kingdom. where he gained in-depth knowledge in litigation, dispute resolution, commercial and corporate practices, corporate governance, contracting, regulatory compliance, and ISO internal audits, due diligence, and foreign investment regulations. He obtained law degree from schools in Nigeria and England, and was awarded several certificates from Ivy League school in the United States, Yale University Contract Law, University of Pennsylvania Compliance Program, and top-ranked school in the United Kingdom, University College London, GDPR, King's College London, and the Modern Judiciary, Coventry University Business Strategy. He is a member of several organizations such as the British Nigerian Law Forum, International Association of Maritime and Shipping Professionals, International Compliance Association, and the Nigerian Bar Association. He has some published work with Lambert Inc., Germany, titled International Corporations and Joint Venture Litigations that limit foreign investments. It's on sale on Amazon and Journal of Applied Business and Economics, JABE, New York, titled Company Rights to Choose its Nationality, among others. He is currently a consulting legal manager, Kwale Genco FZE, at Sterling Exploration and Energy Production Co. Limited. That's our third mentor for today. Thank you for joining us. And our last mentor for today, Mr. Okochukwu Kelly Agboj. I'm sorry if I didn't get that pronunciation well. Mr. Okochukwu's, he has over 15 years work experience in the oil and gas industry across the upstream, refining, gas, and power value chain. Thank you very much for joining us today, all our mentors. It's over to our mentor now. I'll be giving the floor to our first mentor for today to give us a talk on the call. Let me see our mentors that we have. Okay, I can see Mr. Ayobami is on the call. Mr. Ayobami, you have 20 minutes. Our topic for today is the fossil fuel industry.
Yeah, thank you so much. Even though I would have preferred to, it's more of a technical than a legal topic. And I would have preferred the engineers in the house to take the floor and, and give us a bit of a background on, and basically on fossil fuel, because anything I talk about fossil fuel right now would just be more of things I've researched or things I've come across, but they have more in-depth knowledge of things. So basically, most likely they will tell you more of the technicalities involved in the fossil fuel industries and everything. But all I would also want to point out is, yes, Nigeria is we are super reliant on fossil fuel, and it's not only in Nigeria. Statistics if you check that statistical.com will tell you that 80% of energy worldwide is from fossil fuel. So that's how important it is, And in subsequent classes would have discussions around the power industry, renewable energy, climate change. Then by then you have a more informed knowledge of how you just oppose between fossil fuel and non-renewable, then renewable energy on other aspects. And also later in the classes, you will also have discussions on the contracting, dispute resolutions, and other things that we might need to know in energy industry, which cut across basically oil and gas and power. Then of course the new renewables are all coming into place in this current era in the world. So like I said, some things to notice that Nigeria is super reliant on fossil fuel. We thrive on oil and gas, natural gas, and even for our electricity. I mean, you keep hearing about solar energy, wind, tide, all those ones, and I mean, it's a minute, it's in small numbers. We're still super reliant on natural gas and all the lights for electricity, basically. And Nigeria, as of 2021, statistics had it that we over 37 billion barrels per day. That's 7 billion barrels as per 2021, the whole year. And believe you me, that's where we get majority of our income as a country. So fossil fuel is quite important to us. And yes, the whole world is trying to tell us to leave fossil fuel for good reasons, pertaining to climate change, greenhouse gases, pollution, and everything. But still, it has some advantages. And currently, it feeds us, since Nigeria is more of a mono-road economy, that we get to look at other avenues of making good money for our GDP growth. So yes, so advantages of fossil fuel would have can generate a large number of energy, compared to the non-renewables. Then it's cost effective, and transportation of fossil fuel seems to be much easier. I mean, there's pipeline networks everywhere for oil and gas and everything. But of course, disadvantages to tell you about coal burning, for example, the pollution of the air, emission of greenhouse gases, and land degradation, pollution, environmental. Niger Delta will tell you that their oils, their waters, their lands are not good for agriculture and everything. So it's left for you as students and researchers to, after listening to the next 2, 3, 4, 5 weeks, have an informed opinion that this is what fossil fuel, this is what the renewable energy is. Just suppose it's what should we do? You will later hear about the Nigeria Council of Climate Change, the Nigeria Energy Transition Plan, the PIA, and all these people Nigeria has a 2060 goal of a net zero emission. So how do we achieve that when we are close to 2030? We have a 2030 goal that says that we reduce it by 20%. So are we even on the path to do that? So we have a lot of stories around it. There's politics involved, there's economics involved, there's GDP involved, there's the climate emission of gas involved. So all these things, as students, we will now sit down, have a logical view of everything, and think, what should Nigeria do? So we as mentors might have our opinion, but a beautiful work of research is done when everybody has an informed opinion based on what they have, the facts and the statistics and details they have. So you now come up, and sometimes there's not always a right or a wrong answer. It's just you having enough data to make a conclusion, basically. So I wish us a happy discussion today, and I know the technical people will be burning to give more details on what fossil fuel is, types, and and other things. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ayobami, for that brief introduction and preparing our mind to listen to other mentors. Thank you very much. I'll be calling on Mr. Okiogene. I can see Mr. Okiogene on the call. I also just got a message from the JIIPCC team that Mr. Etula Adon will be joining us late because he's currently in a training program, and I've not seen Mr. Okechukwu yet on the call, so hopefully he also joined us before the end of the call. The floor is yours, Mr. Okiogene.
Okay, thank you very much. Please confirm you can hear me, please.
Yes, sir, we can hear you loud and clear.
Okay, excellent. Morning, everyone. Morning to the mentees, morning to you, Hussein, and everyone on the call. Nice to hear from you. I think Ayomide has done a very good job. Well done. I think he did a very, very good introduction. You've been in industry, so you always know how to work it out. So well done for the introduction. Just to dive in a bit more, I think he has given us more or less surface, and he's touched on a lot of areas. So from the operational point of view, fossil fuels, touch on coal, oil and gas representation. They did a very good job, though look at that as a go ahead. But fossil fuel generally, they are hydrocarbons. That means they're made of hydrogen and carbon, and energy sources that are formed from remains of ancient plants and organisms over millions of years. That's how fossil fuel comes in. So most part of the world that you see them are really areas that have long histories a microorganism operation for quite a while. So different of those formations over time, prehistoric life has given the formation, has given the reason for the formation of fossil fuels, and they are basically in three categories, right? We talk about coal, which is one of the oldest that we have known, coal formation. We have oil and we have gas. So coal is formed from dead plants that have stayed in the soil for quite a long time, where they are buried and accumulated on different layers of the soil, and that's pressure and sediment has caused them to form into coal. Coal is not usually liquid; it's basically land formation, so it's a bit strong and has a denser nature. Going to oil, we all know about oil. Nigeria is a very good producer of oil in Niger Delta, and also oil formation is from organic materials, from marine microorganisms, and same as gas. The difference between oil and gas is the gas is lighter than the oil. Oil is more denser, and most times the number of years of formation for the oil is more than gas. Gas is just formation of microorganisms that have stayed in the soil for quite a while. Composition of natural gas is more or less methane. Methane is a compound that contains carbon and hydrogen. CH4 is the chemical formula for that. I don't want to bore us, because most of us are law students. Let's not go into too much of the details. But the question for today, which we're talking about, is there the possibility for all countries to completely phase out fossil fuel? And that is a very difficult question. If you had asked me this question 3-4 years ago, I would have said, yes, we're on the path. We're on that path to ensure that all nations, as has been discussed already, there's a blueprint already where most nations have said by 2023, we would have phased out a percentage of fossil fuel, knowing that everybody is going towards renewable. And that was a very good cost. We were hearing sanctions being fixed in the year 2020 or the years before. But all of a sudden, we have now gone 10 steps backward, because the Ukraine and the Russia war brought in a new phase and a new dynamics in the energy industry. Countries that have phased out coal, use of coal and hydrocarbons, have started going back again to it, because there's been an energy shortage. That's one of the topics we are going to look at when we go ahead with the energy crisis and what is going on. So that has made most of the coal plants that were shut down in Europe, in India, in China, because there was a shortage of energy. Russia refused to send oil or send gas to Europe. There was a lot of starvation of energy in 2020 and 2021. And because of that, most countries had to go back. So we have retrogressed more than 10 years backwards. And then this question, it's easier for me to answer this question than to say, this is not something that will happen easily, because there will always be political reason, there will always be infrastructure reasons why we will need to fall back to some of the things that we have left behind. I just want to talk about a few reasons why we think that it's going to take a bit more time for this transition to happen, for countries to completely phase out fossil fuel. So one of them is energy demand and energy development. This is one of them that is very key. Energy demand is increasing because population is increasing globally, and there's more demand, more industries opening. And even in Nigeria already, our population is growing very fast. People are moving into remote cities. The demand for energy is increasing. That means there's more demand for fossil fuel. Though we are seeing a transition into renewable, but that is not happening very fast. So we need to go into fossil fuel use. If you're following up what is happening in Nigeria, the regulators that are in charge of oil and gas, they are pushing now, because federal government is pushing that they want more oil, they want more gas. That is fossil fuel. So if Nigeria is requesting for more fossil fuel, that means we are not going to keep or meet up our 50% transition in energy to renewable energy. So that answers our questions to say it's going to take a bit more time. The second is infrastructure and investment. There's a lot of infrastructural deficit already in Nigeria, and low investment in energy infrastructure, especially renewable. There's a lot of money that's required, because what you can get in 1 kg of fossil fuel, you need almost 50 to 70 kg of renewable to get that, meaning that the energy density from the fossil fuel is more. So more infrastructure, more money needs to be spent, more investment needs to be made in renewable for us to get into that space we're asking. So with the crisis, financial crisis by the entire world, this is not encouraging when it comes to energy transition. So again, another answer to the question is infrastructure investments is going to take more time, so it's not happening anytime soon. From the perspective of technology, I think the technology that will require for transition is already available, and that also is something is a plus to the energy transition. But again, it's still going to take a lot of time. We have solar panels now, we have wind turbines, we have geothermal plants, and a lot of plants that can help in the energy challenge and transition. But again, reliance on fossil fuel is still very high, and we need a lot more research, more technology to help in that transition. Going to the fourth bullet point I have is energy security. Like we all know, every country wants to be energy sufficient. That means that most of them are looking in the direction of renewable, but a lot of the countries are still looking in terms of fossil fuel. So to secure energy as of today, both nations need almost 80% of fossil fuel. And because of that, the transition is not happening anytime soon. If we go to global cooperation in terms of energy, this has not gone very well. Why global cooperation can help in energy transition, ensuring that we go into full renewable. Russia has not cooperated with the entire West. The cooperation is very, very poor for political reasons. They always want to have the upper hand. So this cooperation has not happened, meaning it will take more time for every country to go into the space of renewable energy. I've touched on political and social considerations already before now. There's a lot of politics going on. The war between Russia and Ukraine is currently on, and it's an energy war, if you ask me. It's an energy war. That war, if that war is on, that war has given rise to countries like Nigeria playing a significant part in Europe, because a pipeline is being built from Nigeria now to augment for that energy supply, gas supply to Europe and to the Americas. So again, while the political climate is not favoring Russia, it's favoring countries like Africa and some of the West African countries that are looking to build this new pipeline to take energy to Europe. So again, while we're in that direction, it still requires time, and it's not something that's happening very soon. In terms of timing and targets, we're still looking at another 30 to 50 years for us to have that transition, as my colleague has mentioned before already. So a lot of time is required for this transition to happen. So ultimately, why we believe that the fossil-free world is where we want to go, because of the negative impact. Like we all know, fossil fuel, when you burn them for energy, they emit what they call CO2, that's carbon dioxide and carbon monoxide, and they are already depleting the environment, depleting ozone layer. They have negative impact on human health. If you breathe in those emissions, they have a negative impact on your health, and a lot of other environmental public hazard that they have become. But the truth is they are not going out very soon. While we are looking to transit from coal, from oil to gas that is less harmful, has less carbon content, that is more friendlier to the environment. Like if you paid attention in Nigeria, we're talking about CNG now. We are going away from fuel to CNG. CNG is compressed natural gas, and the emissions from CNG is quite lower, taking us closer to the energy transition to where we have renewable, but we are not there yet. So if you ask me, my direct answer to that question is that we still require time. There's still a lot of dynamics that we need to play around. It's not a very direct answer. We can say we are going to have all nations to converge together to ensure we get to the energy transition stage where we run out of fossil fuel or we no more use fossil fuel. But I believe it's a process. I believe we have a transition fuel, which is the gas. If we're running away from coal, we're running away from oil, I think we can still work with gas, which is less harmful and friendlier to the environment, closer to renewable energy. And I think gas is going to be around for another 50 to 100 years. So that is something that's going to happen in the future. I think World Health Organization, they are well aware of this, and that's why we have a target of 2060 for us to get to full-blown transition to energy. I think it's work in progress. We can get there, but for today, it's still a far journey. And that will be all my contribution for today. Thank you very much. I'm open to questions.
Thank you very much, Mr. Okeogene and also Mr. Ayobami, for that very detailed introduction. Questions time is still in the future, so let's keep taking our mentors' input before we move on to question and answer. Okay, that's the two mentors we have for today on the call for now. If Mr. Etula Adu or Mr. Okechukwu can make it into the call, and would call on them to also give us their presentation. So it's time to call our mentees to give us our presentation. Mr. Dennis, do we have two groups or just one group?
We have two groups. So
okay, thank you very much. Group one, I hope you're ready. I hope your presenter is ready, your PowerPoint presentation. You can share it on the screen while you start your presentation. You have 20 minutes. I also know that our mentors are listening and will take down any corrections to contribute and correct you after your presentation. You can start now, the group one's presenter. Okay, we can see your screen, but we can't hear you. So kindly unmute yourself.
Okay, good morning. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you now. Good morning.
Okay, good morning. So so our topic is the fossil fuel industry. And so what we've tried to do here is that we've tried to take a holistic approach towards how we go about explaining what the fossil fuel industry entails. So we have started by defining what the term fossil fuel industry means. And we've said that the term fossil fuel is derived from fossils, or the remains of prehistoric organisms. So there are fuels that are formed and derived from the remains of ancient carbon-based plants and animals that have now gone through a process of decomposition and transformed deep within the earth. As of now, that's currently, fossil fuels supply around 80% of the world's energy. But it is important to also note that the history of fossil fuel dates as far back as human civilization. And in ancient times, the use of fossil fuels were limited by the extent of knowledge and technology that was available at the time. However, civilizations have found different ways to utilize fossil fuels over time. Coal at the time, coal was more widespread than oil and natural gas because of how accessible it was and what it could be used for. So the very first modern oil well was drilled by Edwin Eldrick in the year 1959. And in many ways, the drilling of that oil well, together with the introduction of the Industrial Revolution and the steam-powered engines, I'll say that it began the first energy transition, which moved from the use of coal, the predominant use of coal, towards oil and natural gas. So some facts regarding fossil fuels. So first of all, we have three types of fossil fuels. So primarily three types of fossil fuels. So we have oil, we have gas, and we also have coal. So like we said, coal, oil, and natural gas provide for more than 85% of all energy used in the USA. It must also be noted that fossil fuels are non-renewable, which is one of the many reasons why we push for a transition to renewable energy, one that is more sustainable and is more or less infinite. Moving on, so we've decided to now break down the different types of fossil fuels in order to gain a better understanding of what each of them entail. So we said that we have three types of fossil fuels, three primary types of fossil fuels, namely coal, oil, and natural gas. So coal is a type of fossil fuel that is formed primarily from the remains of terrestrial plants. So it consists mainly of carbon, along with hydrogen, sulfur, oxygen, and nitrogen, whose energy contents vary based on the type of coal. So some primary uses of coal would be electricity generation, heating, as well as industrial processes, alongside being a major source of greenhouse gas emissions. So the images that we have used here show how coal is formed. So in the first image, you can see that it is derived from plants and from plants that are primarily located in swampy areas. Then over time, over time, the plants are now buried under water and dirt. And through the process and through the pressure of heat and all of that, it now turns into coal. So through the process of drilling, we're able to now access that coal and utilize it as a source of energy. In the second type, we look at oil as a type of fossil fuel. So oil or petroleum, as many often call it, is formed from marine microorganisms and algae that has accumulated on the ocean floor over years and is subsequently transformed into oil by a combination of pressure and heat. It is a complex mixture of hydrocarbons whose nature and composition varies depending on its source. So it is primarily used for things like transportation fuel, gasoline and diesel, petrochemicals, plastics, lubricants, and all of that. In many ways, oil is pervasive in terms of how it is utilized. It is utilized in a lot of manufacturing processes and a lot of byproducts of production. So we have this image here that tries to show a number of products that can be derived from crude oil. So crude oil represents the raw natural resource that is extracted, which in that form is largely unusable until it is now refined into more sophisticated products that can be utilized to either form energy or basically propel the economy. So some of that would be, like I said, you have jet fuel, you have distillate, you have gasoline, you have residual fuel, hydrocarbon gas liquids. So for natural gas, natural gas is a type of fossil fuel that is also formed from organic matter, but put under control and eventually resulting in primary gaseous hydrocarbons, which often form in conjunction with oil deposits. So it is mainly methane with smaller amounts of ethane, propane, and other gases. Over the years, it has been used to produce electricity. It has been used for heating as well as fuel for cars, for vehicles. It is a very versatile energy source that is considered to be a cleaner burning fossil compared to coal and oil. So it is also used as a starting material for the manufacturing of a number of chemicals and fertilizers. So I'd like to point out here, like our mentor has already said, that while natural gas is also a type of fossil fuel, it represents a cleaner burning fossil, meaning that it, to a large extent, emits less carbon dioxide. So in essence, it is less risky in terms of what it does to the environment and to human health. So many people have suggested that, and rightly so, that it should be used as a form of transition for in our journey towards completely transitioning towards renewable energy. So moving on, so we've decided to now look at the production of fossil fuel, some of the processes that go into transforming, taking that raw material and transforming it into something that is usable. So the first step is usually the extraction process, which is broken down into either mining or drilling. Mining is used more for the solid fossil fuels like coal, while we use drilling for the liquid or gaseous fossil fuels. That would be oil and gas in this case. So we have images that show and that exemplify what mining on the one hand would look like and what drilling would also look like. So the next is the process of separation, which basically breaks down the raw material into different forms of that same fossil fuel. For instance, you have oil. You have oil now that is now broken down into different into some lighter versions of crude oil, into heavier versions, which can now be used when they're now properly refined, will now be used for different processes, which is why you have different byproducts of each of them. Then you have the process of conversion, where you now convert the higher value products into things like gasoline. You basically, so there's a popular conversion technique that is known as cracking, and it's referred to as cracking because it is more or less, it looks like it has the form of breaking down hydrocarbon molecules into lighter ones by applying heat, pressure, catalyst, and occasionally hydrogen. So it is upon the conclusion of these 3 steps in producing fossil fuels that you now begin to treat them and store them for the purpose of using it in commercial practice. So in the value chain of the oil and gas industry, generally you have the upstream sector, you have the midstream sector, and you have the downstream sector. So for the upstream sector, this is where you are primarily looking at exploration and production. So you are looking at looking for places where you can actually obtain this oil and gas. You're also now looking at the process of extracting that oil and gas from the oil wells and the gas reservoirs. Then after that process, you move on to the next phase, which is the midstream sector. So in that midstream sector now, you are looking at how you can now store and transport this oil from the process where it is, from the period where it is extracted. You are looking at how you can take that oil, store it, and transport it to where it will now finally be refined. So in that value chain, you have pipelines, you have maritime, you have rail, you have road transportation, depending on the type of products that you are trying to transport. So in the downstream sector is where you now have refining, where you now convert that oil or gas that has been extracted, that has now been transported to a refinery. That is the point where you now begin to refine it and then move it down to the final consumers in the processed form. So whether it be fuel for usage for cars or aviation fuel and crude oil and all of that. So you now have uses of fossil fuel. We've mentioned, our mentors have mentioned some uses, but so we've identified some of them here, which would be for, you use it as transportation for vehicles and automobiles. You use it as chemicals, lubricants, use it for heating, use it for cooking. They are used in steel foundries, glass foundries, and various manufacturing and aluminum smelters. So now we look at some of the effects of fossil fuel. So it is important to know that, as with all things, fossil fuel also has its advantages and its disadvantages. So here we want to look at some of the effects of fossil fuel on the environment. So one of them will be air pollution. The carbon dioxide that goes into the air pollutes the air. And as a process as an extract from that air pollution, it goes ahead to affect the health of individuals in the society, which is one of the many reasons why there's a push for that transition to renewable energy. So you also have habitat destruction. In order to basically explore this oil, to extract it, to explore it, to refine it, there's a lot of destruction that goes on towards the habitat, whether it's in terms of the fields that are used to set up these refineries, or even the water that you need to drill to extract the oil from the ground. Then you also have ocean acidification. You have oil spills, which is something that is very current. You have the Niger Delta where you see problems like this. So you have oil spills where the oil that has been extracted spills into the water and then contaminates that water. So, and by doing so, it has a lot of effect on trade. It has a lot of effect on agriculture and all of that. So by doing so, it affects the economy as a whole in the long term. Then it also contributes to energy inefficiency. It has health impacts for individuals and for the environment generally. So we've looked at the effects of fossil fuel on the economy. Many of the positive effects would relate to job creation, to relate to revenue generation. We've identified that Nigeria as a country is largely reliant on the revenue that is derived from its oil and gas industry. We've also looked at energy supply. As we have said, despite the disadvantages, it is still a predominant source of energy supply for Nigeria and globally. We've said that globally, the energy supply, fossil fuel takes 80% of the energy supply globally. So negative effects would still be environmental cost, healthcare cost, energy price volatility, resource depletion, innovation and transition costs, and then it also creates geopolitical tensions. Then we look at some technological advances in fossil fuel industry. We look at the shale revolution, which transformed how the position of the United States in terms of its positioning for oil and gas globally. We also look at seismic mapping, which helps to more or less make accurate predictions for locations of oil and oil reservoirs, and it improves the exploration success. Then we also look at carbon dioxide capture and reduction. So we've identified a company that is Net Power that invented the means for zero emissions of carbon dioxide at their plants. So while we try to push for a transition to renewable energy, we've also identified that in many ways that push for renewable energy would not only take it, it's also a difficult process. I think in the interim, while we decide to focus on gas as a transition fuel, it is also important that since we are still largely reliant on fossil fuels, we should also look for ways to reduce the emissions from these plants and all of that. So we look at the future of fossil fuels. So despite the technological advances in the fossil fuel industry, the environmental impact it generates makes it a challenging proposition, which casts a shadow over its future. Fossil fuel poses a direct threat to an individual's right to a clean and healthy environment, as underscored by the courts in a plethora of cases within and outside Nigerian legal jurisprudence. Furthermore, fossil fuels contribute significantly to global warming, endangering the planet and humanity as a whole. So in light of this immense risk associated with fossil fuels, the proposition is a transition towards cleaner energy sources such as wind, solar, hydro energy, biofuels. So now we're looking at some of the alternatives to fossil fuels, which is bordering on renewable energy. Some of the primary sources which I'll focus mainly on would be solar energy, hydroelectric or hydropower, then wind energy. We also have things like geothermal, we have biogas and all that. But what we primarily have here, or what we focus on in many ways, is the solar energy, the wind energy, and the hydro energy. So for solar energy is radiant light or heat from the sun that can be harnessed using certain technologies. We have the solar panels that we use to basically extract the energy from the heat from the sun and then direct it as energy towards producing electricity. We have wind energy, which is basically energy that we get from the wind. So as long as wind blows, we can have energy, and it is extracted through wind turbines that now converts that energy into electricity. Then we also have hydro electricity. This is represented in the dams that we have. So by and large, these are some of the renewable energy sources that, as a country, that is as Nigeria, we have leveraged on. But there's still a need to increase the share of renewable energy in Nigeria's energy mix. So we have bioenergy, we have geothermal energy, we also have ocean energy. So we've highlighted some of the laws and regulations, both internationally and locally, that govern the use of fossil fuels. So we've identified item 39 of part 1 of the second schedule. We have highlighted section 44.3 of the 1999 Constitution. We looked at the Petroleum Industry Act of 2021. We looked at the Environmental Impact Assessment Act. We looked at the Nigerian Oil and Gas Industry Content Development Act of 2010. We've also looked at the Upstream Petroleum Regulatory Commission and the Nigerian Midstream and Downstream and Petroleum Regulatory Commission. These are regulatory bodies. These are regulatory bodies that make policies relating to the governance of the upstream, midstream, and downstream, as we have highlighted previously. We've also looked at a few cases, and we have the case of Benre against Shell Petroleum Development Company of Nigeria Limited. We looked at Korean National Oil Corporation and Oil Petroleum Services Nigeria Limited. Cases that form the legal jurisprudence for the use of fossil fuel in Nigeria. So in the United States, we've looked at the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission formed in line with the Federal Power Act. We looked at the Natural Gas Act. We've also looked at the Environmental Protection Agency Act. In India, we looked at the Petroleum and Natural Gas Regulatory Board Act of 2006. In China, we've looked at the Mineral Resources Law and others. In the United Kingdom, we've looked at the Petroleum Act of 1998 and others. So we've also looked at the United Nations being an international body. We have the Fossil Fuel Non-Proliferation Treaty, through which the United Nations has urged countries to halt the increase of coal, oil, and gas production. Same has also been endorsed by the World Trade Organization. We also have things like the Conference of Parties, I think. The Conference of Parties debates where basically there is a push towards achieving net zero by 2060. So in terms of the future outlook, we are saying that so most of the agreements and protocols undertaken by various countries in the world with respect to addressing the issues engulfed in fossil fuel consumption and production have sought to achieve the following. The first is targeting 1.5 to 2 degrees Celsius pre-industrial level, constrain the extraction of fossil fuels, implementation of policies to regulate fossil fuel extraction, then also the diversification of economies and the development of alternatives to ease the livelihood in the transition period. Then as recommendations for what we could do to basically address the issues of fossil fuel and encourage the transition, we've looked at countries should first of all explore the alternative solutions to fossil fuels, as we have highlighted a few of them. Countries should also execute subsidies in fossil fuels within their regions. They should revisit and review the oil, gas and coal legislations and policies in order to achieve the aims of international treaties and policies on climate change. In Nigeria, to some extent, that has been done with you have the Electricity Act, you have the Petroleum Industry Act, and we have also adequate implementation and honest commitment of policies and treaties. Then there should also be period impact assessment wherein the progress of measures, actions, and policies that are implemented can be guided, tracked in order to determine the feasibility of the intended results. So I think I'll just also point out that in many ways, Nigeria is doing, I think that we are doing a lot in terms of how we want to transition, but there's also that limitation being that a lot of our revenue is derived from the use of fossil fuels. But we are doing a lot in terms of the energy transition plan, the renewable energy master plan, and all of that. But we all know that there will be a lot of financing that is required. There's a need to shift our source of revenue from depending solely or largely on the use of fossil fuels. So in conclusion, we'll say that the fossil fuel industry has undergone a profound transformation driven by technological advances. From a history of accidental discoveries and limited accessibility, it has evolved into an industry characterized by purposeful drilling techniques, precise exploration aided by seismic mapping, and exploration of deep water reserve. These advancements have not only expanded the availability of fossil fuel resources, but have also played a pivotal role in shaping the modern energy landscape. As the industry continues to develop, it is imperative to recognize the central role that technology plays in addressing the energy demands while addressing the environmental and sustainability concerns. So thank you very much. That's what we have for group 1.
Okay, it's like Mr. Hussein is unavailable for now. So
I'm available. Sorry, I was
okay.
muted and I've been talking. I'm sorry. I've been talking. I don't know if you can see me. I've been talking. I'm muted. That's why. So thank you very much, Ayobami, for that wonderful presentation on behalf of Group 1. While you were presenting, our third mentor came in the call, Mr. Etula Adu. Thank you very much for joining us, Mr. Etula Adu. So before we call on Mr. Etula Adu to give us his own talk on the topic, we'll take Group 2's presentation, and Mr. Etuladu can step in, then other mentors can also contribute. If there's any correction on the topic, research, they would also make it. So Group 2 presenter, I hope you're ready. Okay, yeah, I can see you are sharing your screen, so thank you very much for that. And kindly unmute yourself and start now.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning, sir. Thank you, sir. All right. So for Group 2 this morning, sorry, please give me a minute. All right. I'm so sorry about that. So good morning once again, everybody. For today, Group 2 will be speaking on the power industry, and we streamlined our topic to be the power industry in Nigeria. And power
I think we lost our presenter. Her network just tripped off. I can't see her anymore on the call. Do we have a backup presenter on behalf of our presenter for today? Group 2's presenter. Group 2 members, Group 2 leader, anybody can step up as a backup presenter. I knew we all made the research together, so any of us can step in.
Sherry, I don't know if we can still hear me. My network has not been
Yeah,
so
we
stable.
can hear you now, and your screen stopped sharing, so you can start sharing your screen.
All right, thank you. Okay, so like I said, Group 2 is speaking on the power industry, and our topic focuses on the power industry in Nigeria. So we know that a lot of human civilization has been influenced by electricity, yes, and electric power industry covers the generation, transmission, distribution, and sale of electric power to the general public by the power industry. So for our topic, we'll be looking at the history of the Nigerian power industry, the current structure of the industry. We'll be looking at challenges faced by the industry, recommendations, and future prospects of the power industry in Nigeria before we finally conclude. So for the historical background of the power industry in Nigeria, the first time when electricity power was introduced in Nigeria was in the year 1898, and this was when Nigeria was still under the rule of the British government. During this time, there was a power plant installed in Marina in Lagos State, which had a total capacity of 60 kilowatts, right? And that was the first time when power was introduced, electric power now was introduced in Nigeria. And after that time, there was the amalgamation of the northern and southern protectorates to form Nigeria as a whole country. And after that amalgamation, there was the introduction of power to many other states during the years 19 1928 to 1939. The states include Port Harcourt, Enugu, Kaduna, Maiduguri, and a host of other states. So this was how power started developing in different states in Nigeria in the 1900s, right? So when power was first introduced in Nigeria, there were both native authorities and the government of Nigeria were in charge of this power distribution and power management, right? So there were the native authorities owned power supply systems, and there were also the government owned power supply system, and they were separate until the year 1946. In the year 1946, the Public Works Department lost control over electricity generation plants and distribution systems in the country. And the Nigerian Government Electricity Undertaking, that is the NGEU, was established to take over the responsibilities. And this later became the Electricity Corporation of Nigeria, ECN, which was created to oversee electricity supply throughout Nigeria, right? And native authorities still continue to an extent to manage their own power systems. Now I'll be moving to the Niger Dams Authority. The Niger Dams Authority was established by an act of parliament in 1962, and this was basically responsible for dam construction. So as at this time, it was discovered that dams are great sources of electricity power, right? And that they were more reliable, more efficient. So the Niger Dams Authority was established by the Act of Parliament in 1962 to construct dams after discovering how beneficial dams can be. In 1962, the construction of the Kanji Dam was initiated and it was completed in 1968. This marked the beginning of extensive national grid power transmission system, which began operating in 1966. So I would be summarizing my historical background part, right? So after the construction of dams, NEPA, that is arguably the most famous body that has handled authority in Nigeria, was bettered on the 1st of April in 1972, right? And this led to the merging of the Electricity Corporation of Nigeria and the Niger Dams Authority. So both of these bodies were merged to form NEPA. And in 1999 and 2005, PHCN was established. That was when there was a transition from using the Nigeria Electricity Power Authority to the Power Holding Company of Nigeria. And this was in order to initiate and revitalize the power sector, right? And the PHCN was commissioned on the 5th of May, 2005, and it continues to operate. It continues to operate in the sense that as a company, it has been unbundled into 18 different companies, 6 of them being power generating companies, 1 being a transmission company, and 11 being distribution companies. An example of the distribution companies are EKDC, that is the Ikeja Distribution Company. We have EBEDC, that's the Ibadan Electricity Distribution Companies. So this was how the power industry was broken down to be able to serve and meet the power and electricity power needs of different states in Nigeria. The industry is considered to be in a transition phase with some government involvement, and the idea of the transition. So there was an idea of transition electricity market in 2014, right? But this idea has been put on hold since 12th of February 2014. The idea was basically to ensure that the industry is maximized to the optimum and also introduce the idea of privatization. So the current structure of the Nigerian power industry. So in Nigeria today, there are 2 types of power plants, and they are the hydroelectric and thermal or fossil fuel power plants. So as at when energy or power was introduced to Nigeria, we saw that it was only a total of 60 kilowatts that was being produced. But as at today, we have a total installed capacity of 8,457.6 kilowatts. right? And we have two main types of fossil fuels under the fossil fuel power plants. We have the coal-fired and the natural gas-fired fossil fuels. The fossil fuel, so I'll be looking at the fossil fuel power stations in Nigeria. It is divided into coal-fired and natural gas-fired power plants. A natural gas-fired power plant is a thermal power station that burns natural gas to generate electricity. So they compensate for variable renewable energy deficits where hydropower or interconnectors are not available. There are a number of natural gas power plant stations across Nigeria, and most of them are listed here. The coal-fired power stations are facilities that burn coal to make steam in order to generate electricity. A notable example of coal-fired power station in Nigeria is the Itobe power plant, which is located in Kogi State. Then the hydroelectric power station in Nigeria. Hydroelectric power station is actually a renewable source of energy that generates power by using a dam or diversion structure to alter the natural flow of the river or body of water. So I spoke about the fact that in my introduction, how that when there was the discovery that dams are better sources of electricity, the Niger Dam Authority was introduced. Yes, so the hydroelectric power stations in Nigeria focus majorly on converting the power in these dams to be sources of electricity. So these plants are located on or near water sources. The energy available from moving water depends on both the volume of the water and the change in elevation, also known as head from one point to another. The greater the flow and the higher the head, the more electricity that can be generated at the plant level. Water flows through a pipe, also known as a penstock, and then it spins a generator that ultimately produces electricity. So Nigeria has about 4 hydroelectric power stations, and they include the Kanji power station, the Jeba power station, the Shirero power station, and the Zamfara power station. So these plants are classified based on ownership as either fully owned by the federal government, those owned by the Niger Delta Power Holding Company, which are also referred to as the Niger Integrated. So this is basically saying that most of these dams are either jointly owned by the government and another body or owned by individuals. But these are the major 4 ones that produce power in Nigeria, and they are all dam sources of electricity power. So we'll be looking at the challenges facing the Nigerian power industry, and I'm sure that these are things that we are all familiar with as Nigerians. We know that there's insufficient power generation. We know that there's a transmission and distribution problem. Not every community in Nigeria has access to power supply, or even when they do have access, it is limited, right? There are communities where just one building, maybe the chief's palace has access to power supply, right? Then lack of funding and investment. So not so much is being invested into the industry, and that is why there is limited distribution of the power. Then non-reliance on renewable energy sources. So most countries in the world, Nigeria inclusive, are beginning to embrace renewable energy sources, but it does not mean that a lot of people are still dependent on it. More people are dependent on the power that's generated from dams, from coal, that's fossil fuel, right? So non-reliance on renewable energy sources has placed more pressure on the power industry. So that is also a challenge being faced by the Nigerian power industry, and inadequate infrastructure. One of the major problems of power and many other industries in Nigeria is the fact that even when infrastructures are put in place, there is poor management, or they are not sufficient enough. They have a lesser capacity, that in the sense that the infrastructure may not be up to the task to give out as much energy to the community it's supposed to give out to, right? So we see that when pressure is mounted on the infrastructure, it breaks down and it takes even longer time to repair and install. So this is also a challenge that is being faced by the Nigerian power sector. And these challenges have adverse effect on Nigeria, such as disruption of industrial and economic activities, which consequently leads to low production output, environmental degradation or pollution due to reliance on non-renewable energy sources. Medical and educational sectors are not left out as they cannot render the best services to people. The security of the country also suffers as devices like surveillance cameras need to be powered by electricity. So these challenges are not just existent in a vacuum, they actually impact largely the lives of people, citizens, and companies in Nigeria. And
I think we lost our presenter again.
I'm so sorry. It's raining here, so my network went off again.
Okay, you can continue.
So I'll just share my screen. Thank you. So we look at some future prospects of the Nigerian power industry and recommendations. So part of our recommendations include collaboration amongst government agencies, the private sector, and the general public. So the power industry largely affects the private sector, right? Because many companies in Nigeria are owned by the private sectors, and these companies are dependent on power for their production. But since the electricity structure in Nigeria is not so reliable, most of them tilt towards fuels, generators, other means of powering their company. But we strongly believe that if they can invest in the electricity sector of Nigeria, if they can partner with the government electricity distribution, rather than starting or finding an alternative for themselves, it would be easier and it would be a better way to improve the electricity sector, the power sector of Nigeria. Investment in renewable energy sources, this will both impact the environment, right? Because less pressure will be mounted on the environment when we tilt towards renewable sources for energy, and implementation of the reduction of tariff for the benefit of users. So I know that over the last couple of weeks, due to the increase in fuel price, due to the increase of many products in Nigeria, there has also been an increase in the tariff of electricity. And we believe that if these recommendations are taken, if there's more collaboration among government agencies, private sectors, and more investment is generated towards the electricity distribution companies in Nigeria, there would be less pressure mounted on individuals because most people would rather go longer hours, longer time without light because of the level of tariff that's placed on the electricity that they get to use. So for the benefit of users, we believe that there should be an implementation of reduction of tariffs. So future outlook. So the world is fast developing, which is no news to any one of us, right? And we also believe that the increased development of the world can also impact the energy sector, the power sector, and some ways by which this development can be maximized for the energy sector includes energy storage. So energy storage are ways by which electricity can be stored in advance, right, to be used. So when Nigeria embraces this, electricity can be stored, and during peak production times, it will be released when needed. So rather than always having to wait till there's a supply of electricity, energy storage devices help us store this electricity even when they're not in so much use. And when they do need to be used, these devices can be used to supply the energy that is needed, whether or not there is a supply from the original source. Then we have grid modernization, we have AI and data analytics, we have carbon capture systems, and we have decentralization. So all of these things can be fostered based on technological improvements, and we recommend this. And we see this also as a future because now in Nigeria, many people are beginning to embrace the inverter system. Many people are embracing the use of storage devices, devices that actually can power electricity devices even when there's no light. These are devices that can store, and we believe that if we invest much more in these areas, there'll be less pressure on the the power industry in Nigeria. So sustainable development in the power sector. So sustainable development basically means being able to sustain whatsoever improvements we make as a country, right? So sustainable development is of paramount importance for the power sector for several reasons. So today's power sector, I know one of the mentor mentioned how that we have about 80% reliance on fossil fuel, and this is one of the biggest contributors to greenhouse gases. So sustainable development in the power sector focuses on reducing these emissions by transitioning to cleaner and renewable energy sources. And this will eventually help to mitigate climate change and minimize harmful emissions. So we know that there are cleaner ways, there are more renewable ways of generating power, right? And we believe that aside the ways that are already in use now in Nigeria, when we advance towards these other ways, we can be assured of sustainable development. At least if we look at solar power, for instance, we are assured that there will always be sunshine, right? There will always be, and maximizing the sun for power generation is something that is going to be less harmful to the environment, and something that's going to last, something that's going to always be available. And it will also lead to resource conservation and energy security. The power sector consumes vast amount of resources, including coal, natural gas, and water. So sustainable practices such as energy efficiency, cogeneration, and the use of renewable energy sources can reduce resource consumption and waste, ensuring the availability of resources for future generations. I know that one thing about the fossil fuels and other fuels, the oil and gas generally, is that as much as these resources are in abundance in Nigeria, we cannot determine how long they are going to last, right? And we have future generations that also need to come and partake these things. I know that we owe the earth as a loan to the future. So tilting towards other renewable energy sources will help us preserve the resources we currently have for future generations and help them to also be able to maximize it. So once achieved, a sustainable and reliable power supply can lay a foundation for economic and industrial growth by promoting innovation and entrepreneurship in the energy and power sector. It will also lead to environmental conservation, infrastructure development for new energy technologies, and access to energy for underserved areas and regions around the world. Off-grid solutions will significantly contribute to energy equity and access for everyone. And first, we've seen that the Nigeria power generation infrastructure faces significant challenges. The installed capacity is what the nation's demand. Like I said, we have more need for electricity than our facilities are able to provide. And this results in a reliance on backup generators. Frequent power outages are a common issue, leading to economic losses and affecting the quality of life for citizens. To address these challenges, the Nigerian government has initiated reforms and programs aimed at improving the power sector. This includes privatization efforts, investment incentives for renewable energy, and initiatives to enhance the transmission and distribution networks. However, the progress has been slow, which is actually quite evident, but we know that these laws and these reforms are towards a desirable end, and addressing the issues in Nigeria power industry remains a complex and ongoing task. So we are still working towards that progress. The Nigerian power market is moderately consolidated. Some of the major power generating companies include AFAM Power, Ebbing Power, and Toshiba Corporation. Some of these major transmission and distributing companies include Transmission Company of Nigeria and Abuja Electricity Distribution Company. The market is related to register a CAGR of less than 13% during the forecast period. So basically, this is saying that the Nigerian power industry, although it has come a long way, is still facing so much. There are still major challenges. There's still a lot of room for development. And hopefully, when most of the reforms that have been suggested are embraced, the power industry is going to have a better outlook. There's going to be more, there'll be room for more generation of power that will be able to meet up with the demand of every sector in the country, because basically every sector in the country relies on electricity for production and to thrive. Yes, so I'll stop here. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Sandra, for that wonderful presentation on behalf of your group. In-depth research. You're a good presenter. Thank you so much to the group one presenter also. You did a very good job. I'll leave other comments for our mentor and any corrections also for our mentor. I'll call on Mr. Etula Adun to give us his talk on the topic for today before we move into comments from our mentors.
Hello, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, sir.
Sorry for coming late. I was having some work related training and stuff, so I had some delays in my video. I'm still in the office. I should greet everybody, co-mentors, and all the mentees here. I will not take much of our time because I'm sure that we've already had so much talk on this. For my own part, I don't know if you have my previous slide on this topic before the last time we did. Guys, so am I audible enough?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So let me. Okay, so we were talking about the software industry generally. Once again, I'm a student. I'm an oil and gas engineer working in the oil and gas industry. I've been part of the JIIPCC program, particularly on concentrate more on the software industry, which is part of my focus in terms of also working the pathway to decarbonization of the industry.
Okay, sir. Sorry to interrupt. Most of us can't hear you clearly.
Okay. Is it clear now? Maybe I'll have to be using.
Yes, sir. Yeah, it's louder now.
So,
yeah, thank you.
All right. So the presenters have actually said much about the software industry. We understand about that the software industry, softwares are generally non-renewables, and they are formed over the years from hydrocarbon deposits. We have particulate matters from organic and inorganic formation of fossil fuel. So you will necessarily have coal, natural gas, and crude oil or petroleum, which is the core focus for the fossil fuel industry. So, like I've said in the introduction, it's non-renewable resources. We have coal, we have natural gas, crude oil. It's been a great debate about the use of fossil fuel and how that has been contributing to carbon emissions. And for I think earlier this week, I was attending on the webinar about the net zero roadmap by the International Energy Agency. And Fatih Birol has been calling for cuts in investment in fossil fuels, and there has been a push. The COP28 coming up in the Middle East, UAE also are pushing for all of this, and it's very critical that we are seeing prices in the oil and going up, which is very concerned that in drives to look at in the oil industry where oil companies are also seeing how they can decarbonize and to scale it. So license to operate will be affected in terms of high carbon intensity operations. So it's very critical for us. We know that global energy demand in terms of primary consumption, fossil fuel, it's more than 50% of that. And the world is calling for net zero by 2050. And we are having debates in terms of can we continue using fossil fuel? The current generation looking at renewable resources that can help us operate and run the economy in a low carbon setting. And this is a very great concern to fossil fuels generally. So does it really help? What we actually have fossil fuels generally over the years? Fossil fuels help our energy. Excuse me, can I have it in full? Let me see. I need to minimize that code. Hold on a second. So I'm having some. Okay, so fossil fuels help in energy, energy required to propel entire facilities generally also power our businesses, and also in our homes it keeps our lights on, and even today oil and gas reserves provide more than 80% of our energy needs. And where you're sitting today, just look at yourself in terms of crude oil, maybe the shirt you're putting on, or some of the slippers or your shoe is a product of crude oil. And also maybe you have power supply. You can actually see is it from solar or is it from natural gas process that is being converted into power that you're using. Gas at home, you're using kerosene, fuel you use to drive the car. So this is the importance of how fossil fuels have been used in terms of industrialization over the years. And we cannot just hide the fact that yes, it's very important in our economic activity in living, but also what it does contribute to the environment. So these are part of the whys that we talk about in terms of fossil fuels. So if we look at the energy mix globally, global energy mix in terms of around 2020, I brought up these reports. It tells you that 38.7% comes from crude oil, 16.5% is from natural gas. You have a coal 9.7% in terms of heavy oils. You have about 3.2%. The residual generations come up to 20.5%. Biofuels waste around 11.5%. So if we look at world electricity generation by fuels, you understand that you have about 2.7% from biofuels. Low carbon fuels, nuclear, hydro, and solar about 5%. Coal has about 6% in terms of electricity generations. So what am I trying to point out? That there's a significant portion of fossil fuels occupying the global energy mix, and there's a drive for this to be reduced as much as possible. We will try and look at the value chain basically for the various three major fossil fuels that are used globally. For oil, generally, the oil value chain is divided into upstream, midstream, and then the downstream segment of in terms of production. So for the upstream segment, we are looking at exploration and production. Exploration in terms of offshore exploration and onshore exploration, where you have the oil and gas deposits, exploration companies, or we have operators who are owners of the oil blocks invite exploration companies to be able to carry out explorations, and where these deposits are found, from there they do some installation of wellheads, and also involved in the production aspect of it. Crude oil is being transported and stored in the midstream segment. So you have your crude oil terminal, and that is being exported either by very large crude carriers offshore to the various destinations globally, or you have pipelines that are transported within the domestic network to refineries for processing in the downstream aspect of it, where they carry out the processing to the final crude products like petrol, jet fuel, LPG, and all of that in terms of downstream and processing and marketing. Good. Okay. So you will just see, I'm just hovering around. So this is the downstream segment of the manufacturing aspect in terms of crude oil refining process. So you have marketing and chemicals, processing and transportation. So in terms of natural gases, you also pass through this. So you have the upstream, midstream, and downstream. Exploration and production. Midstream has to be storage, refining, and heating materials. In the upstream segment, particularly in Nigeria, you have the upstream regulatory commission that is in charge of regulating this aspect of the business. Then the midstream and downstream authority based on the nuclear act has to manage this aspect of the business. So generally, this is what you have in the oil value chain. For natural gas value chains, it's either you have from gas that is coming from oil wells, which is called associated natural gas, or dry gas wells, which are natural gas reserves has to come up from the gas wells. So that is done through field separation in terms of the production areas. You have to pick up oil and water, either vented or flared or used for power generation and other processes. And flaring is a big issue right now, because most of the times the economic value of the flared gas in terms of investment with major oil and gas operators, the market is not there, so you end up flaring this gas. So some of the things that have been done is to ensure that we use flaring because of the regulations are in place. So gas is being processed in gas plants, then you have products that are removed, non-hydrogen common gases are removed, like CO2, nitrogen, also hydrogen sulfide. It's then sometimes we use it for injection, it's called return to the field or vented as flow. Then you have a compressor station, you decompress and send to the main sales line. You can remove put some odorants, then send to natural gas company. You can actually do that into LNG storage, and send to the various consumers. So you can see for the value chain for gas, production, transmission, and then distribution. So if you look in particular in the Nigerian context, majority of the gases that are used for power generation that we have is for liquefied.
Sorry to interrupt, sir. Your voice is like drastically reducing. We can't hear you. You're no more audible.
Gas also being exported to the Nigerian LNG. Also, last processing to be able to produce LPG and compressed natural gas. These are areas that are coming up currently in terms of the gas value chain in Nigeria. Hussein, am I still clear? Hello? Hello? Hello?
Maybe you should remove the earpiece. I don't know if that will help.
Hold on a second. Let me see.
Yeah, we can
you
hear
me?
you. Yeah, yes.
You can hear me? There was
yes, sir.
You can hear me better now?
Yes, sir.
Okay, where did I cut off before?
I think like almost like 10 minutes ago or so. It's hard to tell because your voice comes up, then it goes down, then it comes up.
Let me use the speaker. All right, is it?
Yes. Hello.
Yes, yeah, you're right.
How is
Loud
it?
now. Yes, it's very loud.
Hussein, can you speak, please? Let me hear from you. Hello.
Yes, you can see your screen. Introduction: fossil fuel, non-renewable energy sources, coal, natural gas, crude oil, petroleum. Can you hear me?
Microphone, speakers.
Let me try again.
Can you hear me, sir?
For the speakers, from my headphone, I can hear you, but from the speakers from my laptop, I can't hear you. That's the problem I have.
Okay.
But is it, now that I'm speaking, is it clear a bit now? After this,
Yes, sir.
it's very clear now.
Yes, sir.
The problem with this earpiece, I'm hearing clearly.
Yeah, I can hear you clearly now.
Okay, I'm really sorry for this. Can I just start some back? I'll just wrap up briefly since we've already just taken a bit of the time already. So all I was trying to say is we've talked about generally in terms of the overall what the fossil fuels all about, non-renewable source. Okay, you have coal and natural gas, crude oil, which is petroleum. Also talked about why the fossil fuels doesn't really help. I've said in terms of energy required to propel our cars and power our businesses, keep the lights on in our homes, and also in terms of the energy needs. Hello, Mohammed. Hello, Hussein.
Hello, sir. Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, yeah, because I was reading somebody was making a comment that I don't know if it's clear now.
Yes, sir. The suggestion was that you should remove your earpiece while you are talking. Then, and when you want to entertain question, you can put your earpiece so you can hear also while we ask you the question.
Yeah, but I think I put it back into the speaker, but I couldn't hear myself. Also, you guys.
Okay, you can't hear yourself when
even when you're talking, I can't hear you again before. That was why I had to knock it off from the speaker's back. But now is it better?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so let's go on this way. I'm going to scream a lot. Just that I'm in the office with other people. That was why I just had to calm my voice a bit. So I've said the why. Even today we have oil, coal, and gas reserve that serves more than 80% of our energy. So I also looked at in terms of the global energy mix. I was talking about in terms of the energy share of the fuels that we use. A report in 2020 states that the oil we have about 8%, gas 16.5, and coal 9.7, and the biofuels. So I also looked at in terms of world energy generation in terms of the basic fuels. Fossil fuel has about 61.4% in terms of the fuels category. Fuel and biomass around 2.7, and we looked at in terms of specifically by fuels. If you look at the fossil fuels, we have coal taking about 6%, and oil 2.5%, gas 22.9%. So I went forward to say about the oil value chain, and then breaking down into three major segments. We have the upstream, midstream, and the downstream segment. And the upstream segment has to do with exploration and the production. And then the midstream, transportation and storage. Refining and the retail markets has to do with the downstream. So I've explained that in the upstream segment, you have the E&P, exploration and production. If you take down the bottom, you will see the crude oil chain, where from the wellhead, production is made and transported to the crude storage terminal and sent through offshore vessels into the markets. Nigeria exports to Europe, Asia, and all of that. So in terms of local refinery, look at where crude oil is being refined to various products like petrol, jet fuels, and from the refinery angle, you can be able to get the petrol and gas. We have the likes of the Dangote refineries that are coming up, and the Nigerian refineries that are not functional now under rehabilitation. So this is the downstream segment, and for the gas value chain, I said about the oil and gas wells, which is associated natural gas coming from the oil wells. Most times been flared. In terms of liquefied natural gas, Nigerian government in the early 90s came up with the Nigerian liquefied natural gas, which helps in terms of liquefying the associated gas that comes from various oil and gas fields. Okay, so for gas wells, we also have raw natural gas wells that comes with raw natural gas and sent to gas processing facilities, oil, water, or condensate is being removed, and the gas is being flared. And then more of it is processed, then sent for compression, either used for sales or converted to LNG. So for the gas value chain, production, transmission, and distribution. So products that are removed will have the likes of nitrogen, mercury, H2S, and that's hydrogen sulfide. And some of these gases used for reinjection, that's injection for production purposes. You have underground storage reservoirs. This is much more applied in the European settings. For Nigeria, we don't do underground gas storage. Europe does more there, and we do more LNG conversions and storage for export. Then also local consumptions for industrial purposes and also households, which is part of distribution. So the gas value chain in Nigeria, we have infrastructure issues and also challenges in terms of contracting for buyback. We have complaints where gas producers supply power generation companies, and okay, so some complaints again about the audible nature of it. Okay, am I clear now again? Really
yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay. I'll be putting this on my mouth so that this is the best way I can do. I'm really sorry. So, okay, so for the okay, so in terms of the natural gas, I explained the production value chain and the transmission aspect of it. So for gas to power, generally, you will have a situation whereby oil and gas production company supplies natural gas to a gas company, Genco, electricity generation company, which is then going to be used to generate power. It's gas turbines that use gas to power, and gas turbines which are propelled through natural gas combustion processes and then converted into electricity that is being transmitted and distributed to the consumer. So if you have the gas to power value, this is what you will have. This is what actually happens in terms of that. So for wellhead, and so this will tell you the challenges you will have within the gas to power value chain. You have wellhead and crude theft. We are having these challenges. Inadequate infrastructure is have the completion delays, transmission losses in terms of sabotage and theft, and so forth. In terms of, if you look at from the consumer aspect of it down into the gas supplier, you have the collection losses, pricing distortions, you have utility financial stress, gas mispricing issues, and long-term contract issues that are happening. This is what you will have in terms of the gas power value chain. So for the coal value chain, we'll have coal, which is one important aspect of the fossil fuels generally. We have a huge coal reserve, but not compared with the likes of South Africa, China, or Venezuela and Indonesia, which are very major manufacturers of the mining of coal aspect of it. We know of Enugu and some of the other aspects in other states that actually have coal deposits. This is an area where we not really utilize fully. So for the mining aspect, you'll see extracting materials and processing and inventory to the rail network, to the port, then shipping, then to the market. So this is what we have in terms of the coal value chain. Okay. I have these also, if you look at the NPT aspect of it in terms of renewable recovery and in line with coal extraction and preparation for power generation systems. Also, we have this evaluation here. In terms of general, I'm just much more into giving a bit of the technical aspect and review of the whole value chain for the fossil fuel industry. So several options exist to transition away from the fossil fuel economy. Hydropower, biomass, wind, geothermal, and solar energy are reliable sources of renewable energy and are growing part of the world. So this is generally an overview of what the fossil fuel is all about. In terms of regulations, I think some of the presenters have already said, students have mentioned the regulatory areas in terms of when you want to look at the oil and gas laws that are applicable in terms of the fossil fuel industry. So I will stop here, I think, because of the challenge of the network. I'm using my speaker. I'm really sorry for this, but I'm sure that you have the slide. I'm going to send it to the same again, then you look at it. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Etulada Adun. Very wonderful presentation, and the only problem is that your audio is not very audible. We can't hear you very, very clearly. So we would like if you share the PowerPoint presentation with us, so we can share it on our mentees group so that you can go through it. I believe you also came in when our presenters are making their presentation. So I don't know if you have any comments on the presentation before we call on other mentors for their comments.
Okay, for the presentation, I saw when Ayubami and the group last one had their presentation. A very good one. I was very happy to see some of the applicable laws in terms of the energy industry. I think previous sessions I've had, I've not been able to see some mention in terms of the applicable laws that has to do with the energy industry, particularly with the fossil fuel industry. Also, the look into renewable energy. Good presentation, great work. Also, in terms of, we always ask about how presenters should be looking concise in terms of how the slide is laid out. Not too much work then, something that everybody needs to work on. This other, the second thing that gave us, also a great presentation by the two. Just one or two comments here on the slides in terms of how it's been laid out. So many, the two has so many words, just like that's happening. So in terms of the presentation, the layout is very, very important. I think I don't have so much to say, but well impressed.
All right, thank you very much, sir. I'm calling on Mr. Okiogene. He has been with us from the start. So, Mr. Okiogene, do you have any comments before we start taking our questions?
All right, thank you very much, Hussein. Thank you, Etulamadu, for walking us through again your presentation. I don't have any comment. I think his presentation is very similar to what I also gave and what the kids, what the mentees gave. So let's go ahead to the question and answer session or feedback for the mentees presentation. I don't know which one goes first. Is it the feedback or question and answer?
It's the feedback.
Okay, excellent. Okay. So for the presentation for group one, well done to the team. I think it's Elias Abayomi that took that presentation. I think his presentation was excellent. I don't know if he's a law student. I was going to ask if he has an engineering background or an environmental background, because he did a very good job. He didn't sound like a lawyer at all. I'm not sure what their topic is. For my understanding was that the topic had to do with fossil fuel, but I think he digressed a bit to go into from fossil fuel. He went a bit deep into processing of gas and fuel, which I think is an extra already, because he did a very good job that. A few things I also observed. I observed that the presentation, the diagrams he had there, most of the diagrams, they also referenced them, which really connected with me. They had a very good understanding of what they were doing. The presentation showed referencing, which I think is a very, very good mark. Also, looking at his presentation, I think we also need to commend them for the work they've done. He talked a bit more about gas and geothermal energy, renewable energy. He went deep into other forms of energy. I'm not sure what his topic was, but if it's what I think it is from the very beginning that has to do with fossil fuel, I think he went far and beyond what was necessary to demonstrate a proper understanding of the renewable energy space. Beyond that, also, I like the fact that he went back again during the end from slide 20. I think he talked about energy laws, fossil fuel laws. Talks about the PIA, quite interesting. Talks about the environmental impact, midstream industry. I mean, he went very deep. I was quite impressed. He also touched on international regulatory laws. He talked about America, India, and China, a few things they have done again in the entire energy space. He did also make some reference into future outlook, which I think that was very, very good to know what is being expected. I think he concluded and made some recommendations on how renewable energy can come into play far above fossil fuel, which is a very optimistic view, if you ask me. Fossil fuel, because we have discovered what they call transition fuel being gas. I think he talked about this as well. The transition fuel is going to stay for quite a while a lot is being done about battery energy, renewable energy, and how to store renewable energy. I think that's a real challenge for when it comes to energy. How do we store the energy so that when we need them? Most times for solar panels, during the daytime, you have light, so you're able to produce, use the solar panel to generate electricity. But what happens at night where you don't have air, where you don't have the sunlight? So the energy you have stored comes into play again, which is why renewable energy is very important. As a transition gas or transition fuel as gas is, I think gas also plays a lot of significance in that space. But generally, I want to commend the presenter. He did a very good job in this presentation, and their work was very, very detailed, very, very detailed. I would say from that. So going to the second one, I think we have Sandra Atto. She talked more of electricity generation. Also went very deep also. I did not review that presentation, unfortunately, because I did not have it on time. It didn't come on time. So I really request that the mentee should try and complete the presentations early enough so they can be sent to us for us to review and give feedback. But I will thank her for the historical review she did on electricity. I really love that. She talked about Kainji Dam Jebba Dam, Shiroro Dam, Zamfara Dam. She broke it down in terms of Nigeria from pre-colonial era of Nigeria. The first dams we had, I think her emphasis was more on dam and electricity generation. I know she mentioned distribution and transmission at some point, and poor infrastructure being the reason. She also talked about environmental conservation, which I think is also very, very important. Basically, I will summarize to say the first presentation talked more about fossil fuel and its byproducts entering into renewable energy, while the second one narrowed down on energy generation, mainly hydroelectricity, and later renewable energy. But I think a very good effort was with the second presentation as well. While I know the team struggled in terms of their presentation, putting it up, I think probably using WhatsApp to show their screen and all that. The visuals were very, very, very small. I could not see it from my screen. So I want to recommend that either you blow up your screen so that your audience can see exactly what you're doing, or you can use a laptop that gives us a better view of what you are doing. But I mean, very good attempt by Sandra also, and also by Elias Ayobami. Very good effort you have made, and I think there's room for improvement as we go ahead. What you can also do, the organizing team, let us know the topics. I know when we have a general topic for the entire team, you actually break it down into probably 2 subtopics for the teams to handle. Share those topics with us, share the presentations with us, so we can understand the context exactly and provide very reasonable feedback. But both teams did very well. I want to commend them. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Okiegene. We've all taken corrections. Thank you very much for the contribution. We still have Mr. Ayobami has 1 or 2 contributions before we move into question and answer.
Yes, Hussein, I don't know where you got this correct crops of mentees, but in my years of being with JIIPCC, I haven't seen presentations being this detailed. You know, I thought I was the only one, but okay, again, I just also confirmed, you know. I also had a thought that, oh, maybe that guy's an engineer, because, I mean, it showed that the Ayobami's group and Sandra group did a bit more detailed research than mentees we have had in the previous session. So, I mean, kudos to them. It was pretty good. I mean, you could as well just write a term paper, a master's thesis on this, or honestly, yeah, I mean, research work was rich. Yeah, so just few additions. Yes, references could be better, I think. Maybe because I kind of have a strong research background, and if possible, at the end of the day, have a list of your sources, you know, at last page, you know, and I mean, and also try and differentiate between details gotten from your sources and also your personal opinion. Yeah, those is because a research is not completed without you having a large input to improve the topic of discussion, basically. And so I that's why I think we could you know, very well improve upon. Yes. And then yes, on the oil and gas presentation, Ayobami's group, I just a bit more addition on you know, gas flaring, vis-a-vis the PIA Act. I mean, the PIA Act, unfortunately, in my own personal opinion, is didn't really, I mean, it was not focused well on environmental sustainability. I think it just wanted, the PIA was just to make Nigeria have much more money in circulation by the sale of oil and gas and products, you know, because even though the PIA tried to introduce fines and into the act, I believe the companies will close their eyes easily and pay off the fines than stop it, you know. And I stand to be corrected by the experts, the engineering teams and experts, that even the gas we are flaring can actually be used into conversion of power, electricity actually. So we have to find better ways of using the gas being flared, basically, you know, which could convert into other things. Yeah, and yes, I wanted to talk I think power presentation spoke a bit about AI. AI is still not being introduced as much as possible. The last personal experience I've had in AI energy was introducing of intelligent peaks in pipelines. But a lot more seems to be done in artificial intelligence. We need to harness technology to make it conserve the fossil fuel we're making, and also make sure that transmission and distribution know the parts where their pipelines are leaking and all those things. So AI can actually make a lot. In both the oil and gas and the power sector. Then also, finance is also a major problem we've always had in the energy sector. Unfortunately, you mostly never ever get a single-digit loan in Nigeria. So you ask yourself, how do companies in Nigeria, how do they improve their capacity? If even access to finance, it's a whole lot of a headache, So that's it. So it's still a major problem in Nigeria, and finance is a problem. Infrastructure also, like was mentioned in presentations, and of course, power problems. I think there was discussion about generation, transmission, and distribution. And the gencos who are the generating people have always said that they have enough capacity. To power Nigeria and power the neighboring countries. But the issue I've always had in the past, according to them, is the transmission leg. Because they feel that transmission, which was totally under the federal government preview, which is still under them, but which there are laws now that is allowing states and other people to come into transmission leg, that they don't have enough capacity to receive the power being generated. Because maybe that's why we constantly have the power grids going off, because the capacity to receive generated power is still a problem in Nigeria. So everybody else almost have it. It's almost a consensus on the fact that transmission is always their problem. Then but mine is this: it might actually be transmission and distribution, because distribution leg is being we don't know too much about it right now, because they can easily blame it on transmission. That it's what they give us that we can distribute. So we still need to tackle the problem transmission of leg of the power sector. Then, of course, after transmission, we'll now see if distribution is as effective as it should be. Based on us fixing the transmission leg of the power chain. So overall, this is the best set of presentations I've received, and so far in JIIPCC. And kudos to Ibami and then Sandra's team. And like I said, just a few additions, and it could have been as good as a master's thesis, maybe. Yeah. Okay. Thank you, guys.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Ayobami, for your contribution. All our mentors, thank you for your contributions. We're moving on to the question and answer session now. We would ask our mentees, if you have a question, you can raise your hand while we call on you to ask your question. Mr. Dennis, if Mr. Dennis is on the call, he will take it from here for the question and answer session. If you have a question, you can post it on the chat box, or you can raise your hand so we call on you to ask your question.
Okay, before we go ahead to take to read the questions on the chat box, would be answering live questions first. So I can see Ms. Esther Ojo's hand raised. Please, can you go ahead with your question? You can
okay, so
go ahead with your question.
Oh, thank you, sir. Okay, so my question is, what is the role of lawyers, or what is the role of the law in the oil and gas industry? Or as it relates to, the subject, we're talking about fossil fuel, talking about power. So what role do lawyers play exactly? That's my question. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Ayobami, please can you help us with the answers to these questions since you are more
Yes.
center?
Yes, in the oil and gas industry, lawyers are always involved big time because one, the laws and regulations covering oil and gas and power are usually in law forms. And respect to other professions, we're supposed to know how to interpret the law better than other professions. So that's why law, after law, they are the yeah. So that's a lawyer. So we should know the law better. So that means you're supposed to advise your clients or any company you're working for what the law says. Then that also brings us to compliance. Now, most of complaints, their licenses, their licenses, their permits needed for example, former DPR, now NUPLC, that's Nigeria Upstream Regulatory Commission. The licenses you have to get there from the downstream commission and midstream. The licenses you have to get if you're working in that field. From the electricity board, you have the licenses you have to get from them. So lawyers also come in and getting those licenses and permits required. Then also in contracting, there are various there are contracts with the NNPC based on fields development. There are services contracts, there are pipeline contracts, there are drilling contracts, there are maritime contracts. There are several types of contracts in place. Petroleum sharing contracts. There are a lot of contracts involved. So lawyers have quite a lot of work to do when it comes to regulatory compliance, when it comes to legal advisory, when it comes to contract reviewing. So that's a whole lot of things for lawyers. Yeah, thank you.
Nice. Thank you very much, sir, for your answer. Is there any more live questions before we go to the chat box? Does anyone have a question he would like to share here before we go to the chat box questions? Questions on the chat box.
So sorry, let me just add to what Bayomia said. I think someone asked that question. I think the legal space has a lot to do in oil and gas, and again, we need to pay a lot of attention to that. I know he's touched on a wide range. This is one of the reasons why we have this JIIPCC program where we're able to advise young lawyers so they're able to choose what part of the energy industry. There's oil and gas, and there's also energy that has to do with power that the second team talked about. I think contracting is a very, very important part in oil and gas, where service companies and have to have agreements with production companies. There are also employee contracts. Also at the boardroom as well, there's also company secretaries where lawyers also play within that space to generate contracts, to write legal documents for companies, for CAC registration, for a lot of other intercompany relationship, and also interpretation of legal documents, partnerships, and all that. So these are areas where lawyers can play. So lawyers have a lot to do in the energy space. In fact, I think in the energy space, totally around 1 to 2% of players there are lawyers, and they are already getting very, very much deeper in the energy sector because interpretation of the PIA has come into play where a lot of interpretation is required, and lawyers are playing within that space. So just to take note, there's a lot for you to do there. So gear up and take up those spaces. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, sir. Thank you for that contribution.
Add on something.
Okay.
I know both mentors have made relevant contributions in terms of contracting, like very specific for like natural gas. I work for the gas sales agreement, and also for crude oil sales agreements in terms of that. So lawyers specifically, me, I'm from a technical background, but you find out that in arranging and putting this contract into place, you see the lawyers coming into play. Then when you have community-related issues within the oil companies and host communities, there are issues in terms of pollution and all of that, the environmental aspect that the companies are taking to court, lawyers, legal department represents. Also in terms of information and management, some of these aspects are being handled also from the legal point of view. So you will have that.
All right, thank you very much, sir. Thank you for that contribution. So okay, I can see one more person's hand raised. So Lola Akin, please can you go ahead with your question?
All right, thank you very much. I have a question for Mr. Ayobami. I would like to know the key steps involved in the hydrocarbon conversion process, and how do these steps contribute to the production of energy from fossil fuels?
Okay, sorry. Let me get a question. The first one was what? Hydrocarbon tax or what?
I said I would like to know the key steps involved in the hydrocarbon conversion process, and how do these steps contribute to the production of energy from fossil fuels?
So hydrocarbon convert process from hydrocarbon into the fossil fuel process, if I'm correct.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. You're very correct.
Okay, that might be more of an engineer question though. So, but I believe that, yeah. So if I'm talking about hydrocarbon tax, yes, I can say something about that. Because I know that hydrocarbon process is what after many years of dead plants and dead animals form into fossil fuel, and that comes into oil and gas and everything. So that's a process in which fossil fuel is being developed. That's what the hydrocarbon process I know about. But hydrocarbon tax is something that was introduced in this PIA. And before the PIA, we used to have a petroleum profit tax before, but this new PIA introduced hydrocarbon tax, and usually between 15 to 30% of your profits, basically, and depending on what kind of field and the like. But something to note is that companies that are involved in deep offshore operations are actually exempted from the hydrocarbon tax according to the PIA. Yes. So so the question now is that some people think hydrocarbon tax is because it's a sum of a penalty or a payment towards us preparing for our net zero 2060 climate projection. Why? Because they believe that hydrocarbon is more like you telling us that yes, I'm agreeing that I'm operating under a fossil fuel regime, and this is my contribution towards our 2060 goal of net zero. So because Nigeria needs, if I'm correct, over 400 billion naira to meet up with $400 million to meet up with our net zero projection for 2060. So Nigeria is talking to international agencies to contribute towards it, but we need money one way or the other. So some people are saying that this is a way of companies that are involved in fossil fuel contributing towards the net zero of 2060. So that's what the taxes are basically all about. But those that have deep offshore operations are actually exempted under the PIO. I hope I've been able to put some light to your question.
Okay, so just to add, to check in terms of the hydrocarbon value, maybe you can check my presentation. There you see, you may see I'm talking, so you can be able to see the conversion of the value chain. Maybe I might not have time to start talking much in detail, but so you can be able to see the value chain of both gas and oil, how this is done.
Hello, sir. Okay. You can't hear you anymore.
Hello?
Yeah, we can hear you now, sir.
Okay, I said if in terms of the technical aspect, Concern Abayumi has mentioned some of the aspects of it, but in terms of technicalities, now look at the slides specifically on the value chain. But if you want to go into details in every aspect of the various conversions, then maybe we can talk that much later. But generally, if you look at in the oil aspect of it, you will see that from your oil field, the reservoir, your wellhead, is sent from your flow lines to your flow stations where you do two-phase separations, then sent to the processing plant that is removing gas. It has to be processed, then sent to storage pipeline and export for crude oil. So then you also have pipeline that sent to refineries for processing for final products. So if you just look at the presentation, you can begin to see the variation in terms of the technicalities. I don't know if that will help.
All right, sir. Thank you very much. I don't know if Mr. Okeogene has any contribution on that question. Is there any, sir, do you have any contribution on the questions concerning the hydrocarbon conversion, sir?
So thank you. I didn't really hear what was said by the last speaker because his audio is a bit low. I think the process is quite simple. Stages, what part of course the downstream, midstream to downstream operations. What happens in the upstream is we do extraction of hydrocarbon, either the gas or the petroleum or crude, as the case may be. And that is transmitted to the refineries through pipelines where they get into the process of refining. And this is one of the reasons why they so come on and they begin to do some refinery. So what happens in that space is there's what's called a distribution, a distillation column. It's a vertical unit where the crude enters it, and some level of heat treatment or boiling happens in that phase. And when the boiling happens to specific temperatures, you now begin to have byproducts coming out from the distillation chamber. And those products involve jet A fuel, kerosene, fuel, and the likes of many other products, naphthalene, coal tar, and all of the products, most of them used for chemicals, used for drug manufacturing, and all that. So in terms of distillation process, that is what happened. Crude oil is now being refined into several products, and those products are sent via maybe marine vessels or tankers and go to filling stations, to CNG plants, and to all the other units where they can be bought, or kerosene stations, or diesel, as the case may be, where we now get those processes. Those are mentioned from the very beginning, and an engineer that will take that. I don't know if that provides some clarity to the person that asked the question. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much, sir, for that answer, sir. So I think I'll go to the I'll go back to the chat box and ask questions. Ask the questions there. So one of the question here is, can Mr. Okeogene throw more light on the CNG compressed natural gas? Can you throw more light, sir? That's the question, sir.
Okay, thank you. I see that question from Harmony Jack. CNG has become a buzzword in Nigeria after the subsidy removal. So what has happened in the subsidy is that government used to pay part of the cost of fuel in the past, or most petroleum products for Nigerian consumption. And what has happened is that government has taken away their payments, and that has caused the prices for fuels and most of the fuels AGO to skyrocket. Compressed natural gas is one of the byproducts from oil and gas operations. Some of them, some products or the products called associated gas or non-associated gases are products that we get from oil wells, and those gases that have been flared. So what happens in those cases is that those gases left, which is what we call transition gas or cleaner energy, is now compressed. There's a compression station where you have various engineering components and mechanical and electrical components and pumps. And what they do is that they compress the gas that we have, and that gas almost becomes like liquid, and that's what we bottle in most of these stations where you buy as home cooking gas, or you can be used for vehicles. So the new niche that we keep hearing in the industry is that compressed natural gas will be used to drive vehicles, and some of the vehicles have been retrofitted. New vehicles that have been built now by Innocent and Co. They are all compressed natural gas vehicles. What that means is that the vehicles will no more be using fuel
PMS that we know, but it will not be using compressed natural gas. And the beauty of it is that the compressed natural gas is far way cheaper than the fuel than the PMS. What that means is that people will spend less, and then they're able to manage the cost of the fuels that you use in the vehicle. So CNG by itself means compressed natural gas, meaning that the gas we get from oil and gas operations, we compress it to become high density fuels, and then we use them in liquid form, no more in gas forms, for home cooking, for driving our vehicles, for mobility, and for several other applications. Some people also use that for power generation in some of these gas plants that we hear about. So those are the applications for CNG, and that is how CNG comes out of the oil and gas process. I don't know if that helps and answers your question.
All right. Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir, for that answer. I think we'll just go straight to the questions the mentees sent on while they were making their presentation. So let's go over to the questions they sent. The first question Group 2 sent was, what impact has restructuring had on the regulation of the power industry? I'll repeat the question again. What impact has restructuring had on the power, What impact has restructuring had on the regulation of the power industry? Mr. Etsulam, please, can you shed light on this?
Hello?
Yes, sir, we can hear you, sir.
Okay, so what impact has restructuring had on the regulation of power industry? Well, privatization do more good for the power industry. Okay, but not too much on the power industry. I think that can do much more. In terms of, let me just add a previous to now. Hello?
Yeah, hello, sir. There was a glitch in your network for a moment there. So please, sir, can you just go back, just maybe step your answer back to us, like maybe a minute, sir.
Okay. So what I'm trying to say that, am I clear?
Yes, sir. Now you are clear, sir.
Okay. So just a quick, in terms of the CNG, for CNG generally more of methane and compressed. Different between LPG is more propane, and CNG is much more cleaner than LPG. So that's why in terms of the oil and gas applications, it's a transportation aspect of it, in replacing petrol, gasoline, vehicular movements. That's why we tend to be using CNG. So it's for CNG, it's compressed natural gas, more of methane. While for LPG, you have more of propane. Propane is much more like in combustion, dirtier than methane in combustion. So that's why CNG is much more applicable in terms of these carbon emissions. So this is why it's very important in terms of transportation aspect of it. I just want to add that. And also for the impact of restructuring on the regulation of the power industry. Okay, well, very positive. I think the idea that in terms of generation, because we have this in terms of the laws that has to do with granting licenses to generate power. This aspect is very important. I think when the last administration, the Buhari administration, came up with the idea is to deregulate and allow power generation to be done by both states and regional entities, it's very important because this step will actually help in terms of transmission and generation aspect of the business. It will add value because if states or regional bodies are able to produce and sell power to the consumers, for me, it's something that's going to help in terms of power generation. We have issues a lot with the national grid. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir, we can hear you, sir.
Yes, okay. So it's for me, I'm a proponent of this idea. I remember when I was younger, in terms of Bayelsa State, I remember that we used to have a gas turbine generated power and was not connected to the power grid. I the state before the state was linked to the national grid. Everything started being neglected. So privatization will do good, and we need to decentralize it. And it will help in terms of generation, distribution, as well as in terms of also gas producing companies to be able to have, in terms of pricing mechanisms, to have their money back in terms of contracting. Because this idea of generation and transmission to the national grid and distribution back to the consumers is becoming a great issue. And sponsoring investments, investors to come in to be able to look at this centralized system is really hampering the process. So if it is decentralized and privatized, then it's going to attract more investment. So I'm a proponent of this. All right. So I think the other mentors can throw more light.
All right, thank you very much, sir. Does any other mentor have any addition to this particular question, sir? So, do you have any addition?
Yes. If I try to understand the question on restructuring, so like in the power sector, for example, we had the new law. I think it was signed by President Bola Ahmed Tinubu June 9, I think, this year, and that allows, it allows private individuals to generate, transmit, and distribute electricity, basically. So that means they've opened, especially the transmission leg, which was dominated by government, the attempt has been made to open it. Now, why I said attempt is, I still don't know how visible that would be, because there's still a licensing regime from state government or federal government on that. So that means, and I'm waiting to see how licenses would be, if licenses will actually be indeed being given to people, the requirements. And of course, we have a very big issue of financing in that industry, and it's always been a recurrent issue, because most people feel that power in Nigeria is still one of the cheapest we have around. And so most distribution networks are shouting that they're not making their monies. So they're not making returns on their investments, basically. So it's still quite a big, but it's good in the sense that, for example, I know the Electricity Act 2023 provides that me and you can actually generate power in our house without a license. That means as long as it's between one megawatts, so that means we can even do that without any sort of collecting licenses from the Nigeria Electricity Regulatory Commission. So it's opened the field out, but like we know, there are laws in Nigeria, but we also have to know that there has to be physical backings towards it. What does the economy say about it? What does the industry say about it? What does finance say about it? So those three things is difference between there's a law and how objective or how practical the law is being put in use. So restructuring has happened. The field has been open to everyone. The three legs have been open to everyone. But so far, I haven't seen any good progress in that aspect. But maybe it's too early, June to October, maybe in 1 year we can critically assess how practicable the law is in practice. Yeah.
All right, thank you very much, sir. Mr. Okeogene, over to you, sir. Any contribution on this, sir?
Yeah, so thank you. Are we taking any of the questions, or we're just taking one to answer? Because I see a few questions there on the chat.
Yeah, this is just on the first question group 2 asked. Then we'll go over to group 1, and then we'll ask questions there also, sir.
Okay. So thank you. I think my colleagues have already, the other mentors have gone through all this. Restructuring and regulation of power. Like has been mentioned, a new law has been made, which I think is a boost to power generation. It's such a shame that such a country as ours, with so much intelligence, so much bright people, so much investment, We don't have something as basic as power. And if you ask, you find out that Nigeria is also supplying power to many other neighboring countries. If we don't have power to power our industries, our SMEs here in the country, why are we giving out? I know there were some pre-colonial, some agreements that were signed already for Nigeria to generate power so that other countries don't generate for international partnerships. I know that already, but I think the new law that was signed it's a win-win for us. It gives everybody the opportunity to generate their own energy. In fact, technology very soon will provide the leverage for people to generate their own power at home. And that puts you in a better light so that during the day you're able to use your solar panels, and during the night then you can also join the grid. That will drop your power and power use by about 50%. But to answer the question, the new laws are already coming in again to help in power generation. Transmission is a big problem in Nigeria, so if you're able to generate at home, you don't need to transmit to anybody. In fact, the issue of smart grid is coming into play very soon, where an estate can generate power, and if they have excess power available, they can actually inject it into the grid and then share it and sell that power. I mean, it has been done in several nations in the world again, and these new licenses that have been approved now, the license that they're giving is giving room for new technology to come into the country and make those suggestions that will avail energy to be more available for everyone in the nation. I think we look forward to that, and like my other presenter has said,
Hello, sir. Your network just is like your network freezed. So I don't know. Mr. Okay, can you hear us, sir? Okay, I think his network has freeze. I think we are fast spent on time, so we want to just quickly run through the remaining questions before we call it a day. So I think the second question, group one asked, I think it has been answered. What is the role that the law plays in oil and gas industry, and what are the roles of lawyers? That question has been answered, so we'll just move over to the first question and the last question. And the first question, we'll be throwing it over to Mr. Etulam to see what's his perspective on that matter. And the first question is there a possibility for all countries to completely phase out fossil fuels? Mr. Etulam, sir, we can hear you.
Okay, I've succeeded trying to see if I can use my computer. I don't know if it's clear now.
Yes, sir, it's clear, sir.
Oh, thank God. Okay, so is there a possibility for all countries to completely phase out fossil fuel? From my perspective, and so far, and the involvement in the industry for a while, not so soon, not possible for now. Even the International Energy Agency for the net zero scenario has oil and gas in place, being used, but in a minimized way. So not all countries, mostly if we look at the Western world, very developed countries, phasing out the use of fossil fuels to a great extent will happen. But for developing worlds generally, for now, it's within the next, even after 2050, it's not possible. It's not possible. Oil and gas is going to be in place, will still be part of the energy mix within the next 100 years. Post 2050, you will not have so much significant portion in the global energy mix. So for me, in spite of the fact that we clamor for renewables to have a major share in the global energy mix, sorry, volume. It means that we can't phase out. If you look at the Middle East countries and African countries, the national oil companies and also those that have, like OPEC generally, that have the more reserves of oil and also are utilizing this period in terms of the demand for energy production, as well as in terms of global politics is in place for the oil and gas. So for me, phasing out fossil fuels completely is something that is not feasible within the next 70 to 60, 60 to 70 years from now. Even in the net zero scenario, it is something that it's not phased out.
Okay, thank you very much. I think Mr. Okeogene also pointed out like during his own section, he said he used to feel that was a possibility until certain circumstances occurred that kind of changed his perspective about that. So we'll just take this last question and call it a close for this section, for this class. And the last question here is, what are the alternative energy sources and technologies that can replace fossil fuels, and what are their potential benefits and drawback? So Mr. Okeogene, I think I will direct this question to you, and then we close for today, sir. Okay, since Mr. Okeogene is no longer here with us, so Mr. Etulam, please, can you still throw light on this question?
Okay, I'll throw that, and maybe Abayomi will help out. So alternatively, like in my presentation, I had said that alternative energy sources that we have in terms of biomass, wind, geothermal, solar energy, more of the renewables come into play. But specifically, if you look at concerns, if we take it in industry-wise for power generation, if you want to replace fossil fuels, we are talking about the use of renewables more. Solar, hydro, geothermal can be used. So first of all, you need to look at base power supply, base load, energy that is required for heavy industries, manufacturing and all of that. So for solar, because of the intermittency of solar and also wind, these are some of the drawbacks, and the improvement of battery storage technology to be applied in terms of using solar to replace fossil fuels. This is something that is being worked on, and some of these technologies have not been scaled up to an extent whereby it's financially viable for investors to look into to be able to replace fossil fuels in terms of power generation. So sometimes that's why we say that natural gas is a bridge between in the transition. So gas to power is there. So hydropower is stable. If countries like Norway that produces oil and gas focus in use of hydropower to be able to supply the country. So these are areas that can be looked at. Geothermal is another aspect that has been coming up, which is also renewable in terms of that. So wind, offshore wind is also something that is up. These technologies have their intermittencies. Wind doesn't blow every time. So what do you do when the wind doesn't blow? We remember like countries like there was last year, we had issues in California where the winds powers, their systems were not so much efficient. So we started having blackouts. Even in Europe, when Russia started cutting off natural gas supplies, some countries that rely mostly on renewables started having challenges. For manufacturing and also for heavy industries, you need base power. So for the likes of gas power generation, coal use, if you look at China, China is also improving in terms of solar energy, but they still use coal because they need base power. During work hours, when there's heavy demand, you will need constant power supply. Then the renewables can come in intermittently. So these are some of the alternative sources that we will have. Their drawbacks is that technology needs to be scaled up. It needs to be attractive and competitive for investors to be able to make sure that they are cheap. Unlike when solar panels were started before, I mean, the pricing of it has come down. You can have it that today that solar panels are a bit cheaper. Until in terms of costing, and these prices are low enough to compete with fossil fuels, because the fact is that fossil fuels have high energy density. Till we have this in place, we will have challenges. You talk of aviation. How do you want to stop the use of jet A fuel? Now we have started having what we call renewable aviation fuels that are mixed with biofuels. So these are things that we are looking at hydrogen. in terms of using hydrogen in replacement of the heavy industry for trucking, compressed natural gas, and all of this. So these are aspects that will be looked up to. So the critical areas that are very important for the economy, heavy industries, aviation, if these areas can be settled in terms of transportation, then we will be sure that we can easily replace the fossil fuels. So this is what I can actually add up. I think Abayomi can say.
Yes, Mr. Abayomi will be just taking your contribution as we.
Yes. So, I mean, Etnam has spoken brilliantly well. And the issue we're having with that cross to renewable is basically the cost. Renewable energy is very expensive. I mean, this technology, things you have to buy is very expensive. Two, capacity, how heavy it is. Like you said, you spoke. How do you can use the solar energy? How many solar energies you have? Solar turbine you have to install to power a particular industry. You know, so it's still a very expensive ways of generating power. You know, yes, it's better for the climate. It's better for against pollution, but hey, it's still expensive. You know, but of course, the finance angle is still it. Who has money for R&D? That's research and development and all these things. You know, so it's and alternative sources are pretty right now so expensive that most countries just still want to rely on fossil fuel. You know, a good example is Germany. Germany shut down all their coal factories because they wanted to go clean energy. But Russia and Ukraine, what happened? When it happened, Russia no more gas from Russia. They had to open up their coal factories again. So you choose one. Do you freeze to death in winter? You know, and just because of clean energy? No, it's not sustainable at the moment. You know, so as much as we want clean energy, but more research needs to be done. It needs to be cheaper. You know, it needs to be cost effective. Then you need to have enough of financing in those industries. You know, but until then, like all we all do now, so people that have solar, the solar cannot power the whole house. You know, so you why you get maybe from EKDC or IKDC, any distribution company you're under, you get power from them. When it goes off, you look for the alternative. So that's what we have in the moment. Yes, hopefully by 2060 we see more of a push. Nigeria has a 2030 goal that will cut down on our fossil fuel by 20%. I personally don't see it being visible because right now we need fossil fuel to run our economy. That's the truth. We can't afford to go to a cleaner energy at the moment. Unfortunately, we can't because we don't have the capacity. We don't have anything else generating money from substantially for us in Nigeria. So yes, the end goal is clean energy, yes, but we are stuck with fossil fuel at the moment. But like I said, the whole idea of research is that we all as mentors have our opinions. You also have your opinion also. So, and as long as everybody is right, as long as you can bring a logical deduction into what you think from the past, how you interpret it now, and what you think from the future. You know, so everybody is right in their research, one way or the other. But we must have a logical presentation to it. Yes. Do we think clean energy is important? Yes, we do. But we need to also live in the reality of how things are at the moment, that we need it to run our industries. We need it to survive as a country. But hopefully, when we have more alternative, more stronger renewable energy sources, then we can now depart from there. But unfortunately, we need to do more research in Nigeria, or else we'll be buying technology at a higher price, importing to Nigeria, and that will also affect our economy. So I hope this helps. Thank you. Okay, I think Dennis logged out. I don't know if Uzain is still on.
Okay,
yeah. Yes, okay, again, I don't know if you have anything. We're just closing out on the third question. What are the alternative energy sources and technologies that can replace fossil fuel? And what are their potential benefits and drawbacks? So that's the last question before I think we end this section.
Okay, excellent. Thank you, Abayomi. I think you guys have spoken well already. Replacements, there are so many, right? But how viable they are, it's another story. Well, there's still a long way to go, to be honest. I don't think there's any hurry, right? While the environment is being damaged, this is the concern. The environment is being damaged. This is even what is leading here. But again, like I mentioned, we are 10 years backwards again. The Russia-Ukraine war has taken us backwards, right? And this is what everybody wants to live with. The position that Europe has put out there and all the funds they were providing to Africa to transit and all the stringent conditions they're giving to us, I mean, nobody is not justifiable because they've gone back even far behind because we are using petroleum and they've gone back to coal. So they've even gone further than we have. So that means that puts the journey ahead of us too much. I agree with Abayomi to say 2030 for cutting 50% fossil fuel. Very, very not possible. Very not possible. As I speak, Nigeria is also building several pipelines to Europe to supply them. So the transition is going to happen another 30 to 40 to 50 years, if you ask me. But in terms of alternatives, there are so many alternatives. A lot of research are going on. In fact, I heard Elon Musk is doing wonders in this space. New technologies in the US, new solar panels. They are very powerful, small square areas. And they generate a lot of energy that during the daytime, you don't need any other form of energy. They're able to power our houses. They're able to do a lot of things. So I'll go to the first comments that the mentor mentioned. The primary areas where heavy energy is being consumed is in the logistic industry, that's transportation, in home use, and then industrial application. Those are the three applications, and they take more than 70% of energy consumption. If we're able to provide viable solutions for this area, we've solved the problem. So what Elon Musk is doing is to handle domestic power supply. So instead of using the power grid or using the power stations that use coal, that use petroleum products, if you're able to generate the power you need at home, that takes away that percentage of fossil fuel, right? We're dealing with that. Then in our transportation already, we're talking about CNG, we're talking about renewable, we're talking about electric vehicles now. Okay, electric vehicles application is something I'm new into. I'm getting into the space now, and a lot is happening. You charge your vehicles at home, and you're able to use them 1 or 2 days. Then you come back home again and recharge them. So battery storage is actually the key, and the battery technologies are being extended over and over. We have batteries that can do as much as 48 hours now. So there's a lot of prospects here, but we're not there yet. We're not there yet. So if I'm to answer your question directly, we still have a long way to go. But there's a future that we need to look at. A lot of R&D is required. Somebody mentioned that already. R&D is research and development. Do we have the funds that we want to fund the research, especially local research? The answer is no. And these are one of the reasons why the refineries and the oil producing companies are being penalized for gas flaring, so that some of these funds are required. A lot of money have been earmarked already to help us cross that finish line, but it's still a long way to go. I don't think it's something that's going to happen very soon. So brace up your belts. We'll still be using fossil fuel. Unfortunately, that's the story I have to tell you. We still have to embrace fossil fuel for quite a while. But coal, right? We need to come out from the very bad fossil fuels that have a lot of CO2 emission, especially CO2. The hydrocarbon fuels are a bit okay, and then we can do with gas more. The transition gas can do another 40, 50 years again. That will help us to, leap start and jump start into full renewable. I think that would be my submission here. Still a long way to go, but we can start with our transition fuels. And also in the areas of in the area of aviation and flying, there's a lot of blending that happened that has been mentioned already. There are even planes that also use batteries and rechargeable. Some of these jet fighters, they have batteries that they charge and they fly with it, right? So a lot of prospect, but nothing is cast in stone at the moment, unfortunately. So we're ready to see a lot of research and see some progress in that direction. And then when we are able to confirm that they are able to deliver as much as the energy dense fossil fuel, then we'll give our endorsement. But for now, unfortunately, I'm not able to endorse that. That would be my contribution. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Okeogene. I think before we round up, we've far spent on time, and I want us to close this section here. But before that, I would just like us to just turn on our video so that we can take a group picture, take a screenshot. I'll be doing that. So please, if that is possible, Our mentors and our mentees, please, can you just go ahead and turn on your videos? Our mentees, please. I can see our mentors already have their videos on. Our mentees, please, can you turn on your video? Yes, let's do that quickly so that we can close the section. Thank you, Tommy, Lola. Is anyone else available to turn on their camera? Please do that if you can. Okay. All right. So I'll be taking the screenshots now. Okay. All right, that's I've done that. So thank you very much. I want to thank our mentors for joining the call. Thank you for making yourself available. You are very, very valued to us. We thank you for the time you make out for JIIPCC. We thank you for everything you do for us. And we look forward to having more of you on our sessions, getting to hear your contributions and the likes. Thank you very much, sirs, for such a wonderful section. Mr. Esulam's PowerPoint presentation, he sent it, it's already on the chat box. I have downloaded it and I'll be sending it to the energy group so that they can also go through it and make observations from some of the things he pointed out in his presentation. For our own end, that is the end for today's section. Sorry we took time. You know, the fossil fuel industry is a very, very broad industry, and you know it's still highly in use because of the high demands of and the high energy demands that we have as a nation and the global front in itself. So with that, I will say thank you again to our mentors, and we've come to the end of today's section. Thank you very much, sirs. Thank you to our mentees for being available. I'm looking forward to our next section. Please do all enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you very much, sirs. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you. All the best.
All right, thank you so much, and Chair.
Yeah, thank you. Good night. Good day.
Thank you, everyone.